Consuming potassium-rich foods like sweet potatoes, avocados, spinach, beans, bananas, and even coffee could be key to lowering blood pressure, according to a USC researcher. Decreasing sodium intake is a well-established way to lower blood pressure, said Alicia McDonough, professor of cell and neurobiology at the Keck School of Medicine of USC. But evidence suggests that increasing dietary potassium may have an equally important effect on hypertension. Hypertension is a global health issue that affects more than 1 billion people worldwide. The World Health Organization estimates that hypertension is responsible for at least 51% of deaths due to stroke and 45% of deaths due to heart disease. McDonough explored the link between blood pressure and dietary sodium, potassium and the sodium-potassium ratio in a review article published in the April 2017 issue of the American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology and Metabolism. The review looked at population, interventional and molecular mechanism studies that investigated the effects of dietary sodium and potassium on hypertension. Her review found several population studies demonstrating that higher dietary potassium estimated from urinary excretion or dietary recall was associated with lower blood pressure, regardless of sodium intake. Interventional studies with potassium supplementation also suggested that potassium provides a direct benefit. McDonough reviewed recent studies in rodent models from her own lab and others to illustrate the mechanisms for potassium benefit. These studies indicated that the body does a balancing act that uses sodium to maintain close control of potassium levels in the blood, which is critical to normal heart, nerve and muscle function. When dietary potassium is high, kidneys excrete more salt and water, which increases potassium excretion, McDonough said. Eating a high potassium diet is like taking a diuretic. Early eaters increasing dietary potassium will take a conscious effort, however. McDonough explains that our early ancestors ate primitive diets that were high in fruit, roots, vegetables, beans and grains, all higher in potassium and very low in sodium. As a result, humans evolved to crave sodium, but not potassium. Modern diets, however, have changed drastically since then. Processed food companies add salt to satisfy our cravings, and processed foods are usually low in potassium. If you eat a typical Western diet, McDonough said, your sodium intake is high and your potassium intake is low. This significantly increases your chances of developing high blood pressure. When dietary potassium is low, the balancing act uses sodium retention to hold on to the limited potassium, which is like eating a higher sodium diet, she said. But how much dietary potassium should we consume? A 2004 Institute of Medicine report recommends that adults consume at least 4.7 grams of potassium per day to lower blood pressure, blunt the effects of dietary sodium and reduce the risks of kidney stones and bone loss. McDonough said, eating 3/4 cup of black beans, for example, will help you achieve almost 50% of your daily potassium goal. McDonough recommends developing public policies to increase intake of dietary potassium from plant-based sources. She also advocates adding potassium content to nutrition labels to help raise consumers' awareness of economical sources of potassium. Foods rich in potassium may be key to lowering blood pressure. University of Southern California researchers studied the association between blood pressure and sodium and potassium. It found higher potassium levels were linked to lower blood pressure, regardless of sodium intake. Potassium-rich foods include many fruits and vegetables, and higher potassium intake may lower blood pressure by using sodium to keep close control of potassium levels in the blood, which are critical to normal heart, nerve and muscle function. Your fruits and veggies. New research has found that these powerful foods don't just help your waistline, they could also lower blood pressure. The study found that eating potassium-rich foods like sweet potatoes, avocados, spinach, beans, and bananas, in addition to decreasing salt intake, could help lower blood pressure. The study, now published online in the American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology and Metabolism, found that eating potassium-rich foods, such as a number of fruits and vegetables, may be key to lowering high blood pressure. This result persisted no matter how much salt patients consumed. Read 6 ways to lower blood pressure naturally without medication. From losing weight to sleeping better. For the research, the team looked at several studies that analyzed subjects' potassium intake, as measured by their amount found in their urine or from their recollection of what they ate. The researchers then looked at how potassium intake affected other factors, such as blood pressure and sodium intake. The team also looked at rodent models to examine the effect of potassium on blood pressure. Results revealed that higher potassium intake was associated with lower blood pressure. Regardless of sodium, the team believed that potassium's effect on blood pressure may be due to our body constantly trying to keep an equilibrium between salt and potassium. We love to beat the dead fruit and veggie horse. No, that's not some new recipe or diet fad. It's the fact that we can't stop telling you to eat more fruits and vegetables because, besides more exercise, there really isn't any better, more studied way to get healthier, avoid disease, and live longer. The latest study on the nutritious nauseous from the University of Southern California and it focused on fruits and veggies with a high potassium content like sweet potatoes, avocados, spinach, beans, and bananas, just published in the American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology and Metabolism. The analysis built off the knowledge that high sodium is linked to high blood pressure and previous evidence that suggested increasing potassium consumption could lead to lower BP. Researchers looked at population, interventional, and molecular mechanism studies that delved into how both sodium and potassium can affect hypertension or high blood pressure and found that high dietary potassium was tied to lower blood pressure, no matter the salt intake. They also found that sodium is important in the body